Hello. I have with me today my colleague and brother in Christ, Paul Grimmond. Paul is the Dean of Students here at Moore College. Paul has graciously agreed to just have a chat with me. And I'm saying graciously agreed because he's just been so incredibly busy and has just been doing so much today. I haven't even had a chance to ask him what he has been doing before actually starting this, so that we've kind of saving time. Paul, what have you been doing today?
Look, I was in a meeting at 8 o'clock this morning with a bunch of the senior managers from college, hearing the Premier's report and starting to think about our response to that. We met with the faculty at 9. I did a few bits and pieces. We had another meeting at that stage and trying to work out how we will manage looking after particularly some of our students who live in local residences here. So I met with a bunch of the students at lunchtime to talk through with them what their implications are for where they might move if they have to move, and how we're going to manage as we get closer to potentially being locked down and all of that kind of stuff. And then I went from there into a regular 2 weekly meeting we have with the kind of senior members of the college, admin and faculty, just talking about longer term issues for the college around things as varied as how we're going to recruit people for the future in this new environment and other stuff like this. So,
okay. And that's in your role mostly as Dean of Students here at Moore College, just to clarify. Okay. That's a lot of meetings. That's just incredible. Thank you for doing
that's
all
been my
those
life
meetings.
a bit lately. So
Okay.
Yeah.
I really have appreciated your help and guidance, even for us as faculty as well as for the students. And I wanted to chat to you and just to chat through just the kind of emotions that our students are dealing with, which is actually the kind of emotions we're dealing with, and people who are probably watching this are dealing with as well.
Absolutely.
Just to notice we're a bit distant at the moment. This isn't probably good for camera or whatever, but we're
trying to maintain an appropriate distance under the circumstances.
That's right. Yeah. So maybe I could ask, what kind of emotions are people that you're coming across grappling with at the moment? What are people feeling?
It's kind of strange, isn't it? One of the things that I've noticed, even just talking individually with students, there's a massive range from a little bit of excitement, which I remember I used to feel. I grew up in northern New South Wales, in Lismore, and we used to get a big flood in the centre of town maybe once every 2 or 3 years. And when that happened, where my mum worked, they had to get everything out of the building and put it in buses and drive it up onto the hill until the flood came up and went down again. I remember as a kid, everything was mad, but there was something exciting about the busyness and kind of organising and whatever. So I think some of our students are kind of feeling a bit of the excitement of change and new possibilities and whatever.
I've got a bit of that actually. As well as other things. But
which is something weird about being human, right? Because it's awful and difficult, but at the same time, everything's been changed and put up in the air. For some of us, brings an exciting possibility. I think a number of our students feel very disoriented in that so much of what has been predictable about life is unpredictable. So I think one of the big things for us has been that we've made decisions over the last month, and every time we've made a decision and communicated it, it's felt like it's only 3 days later or whatever, that the ground's moved again and we're saying something else to people. So I can think of people that I've asked to do jobs for me over the last week or two, where they've prepared something and gotten some information for me that by the time they got it to me, we were beyond the point of being able to even use that information. So I think there's a real sense of, at least for some people in our organisation, you're doing things and you don't even get to achieve anything because the usefulness of it's past, because the thing is moving at such a rapid rate.
Other emotions?
I think emotions. I think people who have elderly relatives and people who are very distant from their families at the moment. So students who have moved from interstate, some students who are here from overseas. The level of complexity. We have one young couple who've moved here from another country who came in order to be involved in community, and all of a sudden everything's been thrown online, and they were trying to find their feet in a new place anyway, but even where they were trying to find their feet a month ago looks totally different to where they find it now. So like as I've talked with Simon Gillam a little bit about this, we actually think that maybe like the idea of culture shock, what missionaries go through going onto the ground and then coming back into their own country many years later, in a sense our whole society is going through culture shock at the moment because everything's the same but everything's different.
I think you've identified a number of things that that I as well and our family have been feeling. You know, just even last night we were just going, it was there was something little that turned into something really big, you know, and we were, and it was just tiny. The thing that it was, you know, it was about, you know, eating a peach or something, but it was big because it wasn't about the peach. It was about
absolutely. And I actually think one of the things that I've observed a lot, this is in my own household as well as here at college and whatever, when everything is out of control. Being able to have something that you can control starts to become much bigger. And so you have these weird arguments about why you're eating the peach like that, which doesn't we all know it doesn't matter. But at that moment, having something that happens my way is a way of helping myself to be a bit calmer or to have some sense of control and stability in a world that feels like it's gone totally mad. I'm
asking you this not just to identify these things, but I mean, partly identifying them is a good thing, isn't it? Just to say, this is how I'm feeling.
Look, I think one of the things that I want to say, that one of the biggest things we do for each other at the moment is just stopping and asking the question, what's going on for you? And at two levels, I think I want to encourage people, when you ask the question, to try and just get beyond, I'm okay, or whatever it is, to actually just stop for a moment. Even just for a moment and think, well, what am I actually feeling? I'm feeling concerned, I'm feeling excited, I'm feeling worried, I'm feeling angry perhaps. Like I think for lots of us, there's a sense of, is the government doing the right thing? And like I actually think we're in an environment where nobody knows quite exactly what the right thing to do is. And we're hearing lots of expert opinions. It's very hard for any of us to sift through any of that evidence. And so that sense of being bewildered and out of control often will lead us to being angry or slightly depressed or even withdrawing slightly for different ones of us. But being able to stop and say, not just what do you feel like is the right answer, but what are you just personally actually feeling right now? And it could be a confusing mix of things.
That's helpful. What other? I guess I wanted to ask you what the theological kind of truths, but also just practical things that flow from that. Have you been seeking to help our students with and other people with? And what do you wish that, you know, okay, what have you learned? I guess. I mean, not just wish, but what have you learned? That's right.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for me, I think theologically the gospel sits right at the centre of my theological system. And so continuing to think about what it means to be a follower of Jesus and to honour Christ and the gospel in a circumstance where things are crazy and mad. One of the things that I think I find liberating about the Bible's approach to that is both that it commends to me a way of thinking and feeling, like it encourages me towards things like thanksgiving and to joy and to patience and a whole bunch of good things. But it does that in a way that acknowledges the fact that I'm an emotional human being and the Bible appeals to my emotions in all sorts of places and levels. So the fact that the psalmists can cry out and there's the anguish and the desperation and even the movement in any individual psalm from a place where you start in anguish and the psalmist is able to talk to themselves a little bit and remind them about something about the character of God or his work in the world, and that slowly moves them to a new place emotionally. I don't get to the new place emotionally by just denying what I'm feeling. I think I get there by acknowledging where I'm at, giving myself enough space to just think gently about how knowing Jesus is Lord and he's good and the gospel's right and real speaks into that space and then slowly carries me to a new place in terms of the way that I'm thinking and feeling. What I've noticed is actually as I go through that's healthy, although when I'm here, there are still the echoes of the reverberations of where I started from. Like it's not, because I'm human and it's messy and I'm mixed up, So one of the things I would ask, what is the right emotion to feel at this moment in time? Well, it seems to me fear is perfectly reasonable.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And because actually fear is a good gift from God. We're actually to fear him. There are appropriate things to fear in a broken world. So fear is a right emotion.
Disappointment. Sorry, I'm
no, you go.
Yeah, I mean, there's disappointment. That is expectations dashed.
Yeah.
As you were speaking about some of our students, but our own family and all sorts of things.
I think for our students here, for example, the prospect of going out. We were due to go on mission next week and be involved with a whole lot of local churches, being active in the community and sharing Jesus and talking about what we believe and serving people and loving people and whatever. And that's a highlight of our college year. Like students come to college. I even have had first year students who have never been on mission, but I've heard from previous students who've said, this is one of the things I loved most about being at college. And so we've gone from saying, we're not going to do that, but we're going to try this new thing where we create some online resources to help people. And then we've gone, actually, we're going to do that in groups together, but we're probably not allowed to meet together as much as we thought we were going to. So what that's going to look like has changed. So over the space of the last kind of 2 weeks, message after, and at each point in time, there's a disappointment. And then there's, I see something else to hope for. And then it feels like that kind of gets taken away from me as well. And so that constant sense of being disappointed, I think, leaves us feeling a little unsettled and empty, even, or grumpy, or all of those things.
Yeah. They're all. One of the things that the idea of processing our emotions is really helpful, isn't it? Right now, even being able to process our emotions is a bit hard because you start to process the emotion and then you've got another one to deal with because of the change. So that's also those feelings.
So look, a concept that I found quite helpful in terms of pastoral ministry is an understanding of what psychologists sometimes call primary and secondary emotions. So often as human beings, we actually have what we might call primary emotions. And some of those primary emotions are very strong. They're a kind of instantaneous emotional reaction to an event or circumstance, to something that we feel. For some of us, the way that we grew up, the family that we came from, all of those kinds of things, those primary emotions were seen as unacceptable for some reason or another. Whether it was not appropriate to be angry, it wasn't appropriate to be upset, it wasn't right to be too happy about something, whatever it is. And so often we've actually created a habit of responding to primary emotions by replacing it very quickly with some other emotion that we feel, or vice versa. And so, for example, one of the things that we find often for young men in their teenage years, they might experience all sorts of things emotionally, but it kind of, where it ends up is anger. That they feel angry and out of control, or whatever it is, and they don't necessarily have the words to describe whatever it was that triggered that, but it just got there very quickly and they felt that kind of stuff. Or you've been used to suppressing your anger and replacing it with something else that's socially acceptable, but it's not right to say, I've been angry. So the very simple fact of going, I've had an emotion, were there other emotions attached to that? What kind of words might I use to describe those things? That helps me just to get a clearer way of starting to think about what's going on for me and engaging with that a little bit more deeply.
And letting each other do that too, isn't it? So as we're talking to each other, allowing, if someone's angry, you go, okay, or whatever, or if they're not angry, if they're whatever they're feeling is kind of...
And so a simple question might be, I'm feeling angry as well, but I'm wondering, is it like, why are you feeling angry?
Asking the question.
What's particularly provoked that, or what are you feeling really upset about at the moment?
That's good. Other things that I found just a helpful thing that you were saying to the students. This was back on Wednesday. And that feels like a lifetime ago. Really, that was 5 days ago. The world was different. But even then, you were saying that in this time, there are two particular Christian virtues which will be really helpful for us, and you identified discipline and patience. And very helpful for us sorry, I'm just doing stuff with a computer because I don't know if it's going to turn itself off or something. By the way, we're in the kitchen here too, because that's a place where we can chat, so people might wander in. Okay, that's out of the way. Discipline and patience. I think that was really helpful. Do you want to just elaborate on
I mean, I was reflecting a bit, I think, on what are different virtues that the gospel calls us to generally, and what particular virtues might be of value to us in a space where it feels like it's a bit unhinged. It's that kind of out of joint kind of, and everyone's feeling a bit kind of on edge, and life's being rearranged. So the routines and habits of life are going to be completely deconstructed and reconstructed in a way. So the fact that I can't go out and go to work, but I work in my home, anybody who's actually been serious about working from home for a long period of time will tell you there's all sorts of adjustments you need to go through. What is this, my relaxation space, or is it my workspace? Is it et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? So it seems to me one of the things that I have encouraged the students to, but I think is really helpful, I think when the Bible talks to us about the value of discipline, and particularly to elders and overseers, but I think it's a general rule. I think discipline and self-control are quite tightly attached to each other. And self-control, I think, is one of the primary virtues. When you look at the virtue lists in the New Testament, it seems to be a thing that comes up over and over and over again. And there's the proverb, the man, better the man who can control his own spirit than the man who takes a city. Humanly speaking, it's almost easier to take the city than it is to work out how to be in control of me. And so I was suggesting to the students that maybe one of the ways of working towards self-control is just making some concrete decisions around having some routine and discipline and organisation in your day.
I think that's so helpful. One of the reasons that I think it's helpful is that partly is because we're sort of all being separated out now. We're all being isolated. And when you're in a community like we are at Moore College, it's a real community. So someone's just asked us a question. We're recording this, but it doesn't matter because it's all whatever. So Darren, the amazing Darren, who's been doing so much work for us IT-wise here at college, turning us into a different college,
an online learning community,
but still, anyway, Darren.
Certainly online, because as of tomorrow, I am working from home because I have 4 children at home who are going to be doing online learning.
Okay. So
I won't see you physically, but I will see you virtually.
Okay.
Over the next little while, I am contactable.
See you, Darren.
I'm working.
So great what you're doing. I really appreciate it. Do you want to say hello here so that people see your face? With social distancing.
Hello.
Okay.
Thanks so much, Darren.
Thanks so much, Darren. Really appreciate it.
We'll see you when.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
See you, Darren.
When we're in a community, much of our discipline comes from those around us. And for the fact that we've got routines that we're doing all together. And so we rely, and that's not bad, we rely on others so often for our discipline. So we all go to lunch and have lunch at the right time because it's lunchtime. Whereas when we're by ourselves, well, when do you go to bed? And especially if you're working from home.
Absolutely.
You've got to create your own. You've got to create stakes in the ground. And then there might be arbitrary, but you just have to do it.
But it's interesting, isn't it? So one of the things we know about being created and being human is the fact that simple things like eating and exercise and sleep is all just part of our created reality, and it affects who we are and our emotions and how we respond. One of the things that I find really fascinating about this, in Spurgeon's lectures to my pupils, there's a little talk that he gives about like the preacher's fainting fits, and he talks about kind of coping with the stresses of ministry. So we're talking about the late 1800s. Spurgeon's talking to people about the stresses of ministry, and he goes, look, part of your problem, this is my paraphrase, by the way, this is not what I actually said, but he said, look, part of your problem is that being a pastor involves sitting at your desk for long periods of time, and you get stuck in dark rooms reading books, and you don't go outside, and of course you're going to be miserable. So get out and go for a walk, and it'll be good for you, and it'll make you a better pastor and a better preacher of the Bible.
Yeah.
Now, fascinatingly, we've now done thousands of hours of scientific research to basically arrive at the same conclusion that Spurgeon arrived at just by reading the Bible and watching what people did in reality.
Yeah.
And saying, you're human,
Yeah.
you need to do human kind of stuff. And what's interesting is that the electronic world tends to disconnect us from that.
Yes.
And the social isolation will disconnect us from the habits and routines of life that help us to be human.
Yeah.
And so working out how to create some of those habits and routines for ourselves to know, it's okay to stop for a minute and have something for morning tea and have just a conversation with someone. Or it's okay to eat lunch at this moment, or it's okay, how do we do those kinds of things that we're trying to do in life? So we, one student had a chat with one of our chaplains here. She was in quarantine for a while. She said the way I coped with quarantine was I tried to get out of bed at the same time every morning. I thought I normally catch the bus into uni and do my devotion, so I had a chair at home where I'd sit in while I would do the bus ride and actually do my devotion with myself there. And then I'd try to start doing some online work to catch up on classes at the next thing, and I'd try to have it. And I just thought that's actually a really thoughtful, helpful use of your day. Break it up. Give yourself some time markers, give yourself permission to work, permission to move away. The experts have been telling our kids maybe for online school, get dressed in your school uniform and sit at the table.
Yeah.
And we go, that's so stupid, and my children will probably go, well, why do I have to do that? And et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But actually creating routines and habits and patterns helps us humanly. And so I just think working out how you're going to do discipline for yourself, not ridiculously or radically, but give yourself some pegs in the ground to work out how to keep being human and have some rhythm and pattern to your day is a really important thing at the moment.
Really helpful. You also mentioned patience as well.
Yeah. So I think, the flip side about having discipline is, for some of us, discipline really, really matters, and it's how we cope. But requiring everybody to be... And the danger, of course, is that what we then want is everybody else to be disciplined in the same way that I'm disciplined. And of course, nobody's coping as well. Everybody is stressed. Simon Gillam again has chatted to me, and I think maybe I don't know, you're maybe going to chat to him more, but he's kind of said to me that one of the things they talk about in kind of cross-cultural adjustment is that there'll be a period of time when your capacity is like 50-60% of what it normally is, just because doing the small things in life get a lot more complicated because everything's different, and that stress is exhausting, and so you feel like, I've only done 2 things today and I'm really, really tired. And I actually think I've seen a lot of that.
Yes.
Amongst students, amongst the staff and faculty here, and amongst friends as well, and that's what we're all feeling. Because that processing of emotion, that things being out of joint, that's just tiring. And so being aware in that environment, I am much more easily triggered by the way you eat the peach.
That's right. Yes.
And so I am going to work at realizing when I am starting to get reactive and wanting to control. I want to take a deep breath. I want to ask God to just help me to remember that Jesus has been kind to me, and I want to be gracious and let you have your space as I have mine. And so working out how to do patience with each other and just remind ourselves of the gospel at the moment, I think is really important.
Great. Well, thanks, Paul. I could keep talking to you about this forever. Thank you for being gracious and patient at the end of a long day. Able to talk.
It's
and
been
share
really
this.
stimulating. Thanks, Lionel.
No worries. And is there anything else that you were thinking? I really want to say this, or I think this would be helpful.
I just want to keep saying to people, it's interesting, isn't it? We want to do things, for example, like hold on to hope at the moment, because I think the gospel genuinely gives us a different kind of hope. I think that you can do that, if I can put it this way, anxiously and non-anxiously. That is, your response is, things are bad, I'm just going to really hold on to the hope. But that thing before that I was saying about trying to take a breath and relax and live through and acknowledge I do feel stressed. I feel some anxieties that are right, and the hope's not just going to make those go away. But I do genuinely want to remind myself that the death and resurrection of Jesus changes things. And changes things in a way that while my experience of tomorrow might still be a bit messed up and out of joint and out of whack, there are some solid things that I can hold on to, not in a desperate I need to way, but in a real, there is a deep truth of God that speaks long term to our existence and to life in the face of death, that I just think is very precious and real. And I just want to encourage us as a community to work out how to keep having those conversations, not in a stressed way, but in a calm, real way that drinks at the riches of the well of God's truth.
It gives us that hope. It might be a long way, sometimes feel a long way off, but it is what gives us the reason to actually keep going and to deal with these things. Thanks so much, Paul. I hope that's helpful, and it's been helpful for me, and we'll just keep having these chats as long as we can, and then when we can't, when we have to socially distance ourselves even more, if we have to do that, then I guess we'll try and do it in a different way.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thanks very much,
brother.
Paul. Really appreciate it.